Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful in the studio today. And today we're going to be starting a new series. So if you have been watching my channel, thank you. I appreciate all of your comments and your thumbs up and that sort of thing, and just the encouragement. If you are joining my channel for the very first time, welcome. I hope that if you enjoyed this video that you'll give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future videos. Like I said, I'm starting a brand new series. This video today is going to have a tutorial, a little short one at the end, but it's going to start out with, because it's the beginning, kind of my inspiration for this project and how I'm going to approach this project. Like I said, I am brand new to mixed media art and junk journaling and art journaling and all that sort of thing. And I've been having such a great time. I love learning new things and experimenting. And that's why I started this channel, so that I could share what I'm learning with all of you. I'm going to try to approach this again as a beginner because there's so many new people out there like myself. We don't maybe always know how to approach a project, where to start, that sort of thing. But at the same time, I also like to give myself challenges. So there's always something motivating me why I want to do a certain project. And then also, it's easy when you're first learning new things to watch videos and do things exactly, just kind of mimic exactly what they did. And I think that's a great way to learn. But then for myself, I like to challenge myself, especially since I am doing videos, is if I'm watching something else, I don't want to just copy what somebody else is doing. I want to be inspired by what they did and maybe have a little spark from one little thing that they showed that makes my imagination take it somewhere different. So that is always kind of my goal, to come up with fresh ideas just to kind of interest people that have been doing this for a long time. So we'll see if I meet my goals for this one. One thing that I have never done is make a book from scratch, from a hardcover book put together from recycled materials. So that's kind of where I started with this project, because I hadn't done that. My last one, if you watched the series on the Bohemian Exotic Travel Scrapbook Stacked Envelope Journal, that one was really colorful. I had given myself a challenge to just use book page, no decorative paper packs, and that was so much fun. It really kind of got me to be creative in a way that I hadn't yet. So I'm kind of wanting to do that a little bit also in this one, partly because I still have lots of book page to use up. This one I'm not going to limit myself to just that, but I think I still will use lots of recycled materials in this one. So I wanted, today's going to be mostly kind of a talking thing, I think, because I want to show you how I'm going to approach this one in a maybe a more methodical way. At least I'm going to try. The last one that I did was kind of a fun journey, because I didn't have a plan to start with. And so it kind of took some U-turns and that sort of thing, and it was a lot of fun. But this one I thought I might try to be a little bit more organized in my thought processes. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to start making this cover. My other goal is to make my videos not be so long as the last few. So I'm going to maybe break them up into smaller parts. So today I wanted to share with you how I'm going to approach this one, and kind of what my thought process is. That way, if you want to follow along with my theme and my color palette and all of that, you're welcome to do that. It would be so much fun kind of just to see how we each take that inspiration and do something different with it. And then also, I kind of want to go through my process so that if you want to follow along with this project, but with a different theme, then you can kind of see how I'm going to approach that and do your own creative journey side by side with me. And that would be fun too, to see this project, but with a different theme. So I took a road trip the other day, and it made me kind of, all that car time, you can kind of organize your thoughts. And so I decided I was going to actually type things out. I'm not a list maker normally, but I think it's a good idea to do. And I know in my last journal, I did a prompt list kind of partway through, and it was very helpful because when you got stuck, which I do because I'm new to this, you kind of sometimes don't know where to start. Or even if you're in the middle of it, you get to a point where you feel like you're blocked. Having a list makes it easier because you can just go through and see where you are, or maybe there's words or things that will get your imagination going. So that's what I did. So I started out mainly just saying, what is my process for making a junk journal? So my first thing was, and you can change the order of these. Maybe you have an idea in your head of what you want to do next, but you only have one piece to the puzzle and you need the other one. So I kind of made a list of what those parts are. One is format. What format do you want your journal to be in? You might want it to be a junk journal. You might want it to be an altered book, or you might want it to be like the stacked envelope style journal. There are other ones that I have not tried yet, little small flip books and that sort of things, and accordion opening ones, different styles. So that's what I mean by format. What format do you want it to be in? Now I have done altered books where you just, this one's an in progress one still, but you just alter the cover and then you start taking pages out and turn this into a journal. So I've done a couple of those, and then I've done the stacked envelope one like I did for my, let's see if I can grab one here. The stacked envelope format, where you have all these envelopes that you're decorating, and then you have maybe another book side to it. There's that format. But since I've done both of those recently, I wanted to do a book from scratch with a hardcover. I've never done that before, so that's what this one's going to be for me. And then the next thing that I wanted to think of was a color scheme. The last one that I did was very brightly colored, and I kind of alternate because I like a lot of different things, like a lot of people do. I'm not just a one taste kind of person. So the last one I did was very colorful, bohemian papers and bright. So this one, I thought, I love vintage, I love grungy, I love rust and all that kind of stuff. So for mine, I decided that I wanted to make it grungy. I want vintage neutrals. If I have color, I want it to be faded color. I want to use rust and galvanized metal, that sort of feel for my color scheme. And then as far as a theme, a short answer would be grungy vintage grungy, whatever you want to call it. There's lots of different kinds of vintage. There's Victorian vintage, there's shabby chic vintage, really sweet, beautiful, florally vintage, that sort of thing. I like kind of real life vintage, I guess I would call it, like everyday, grungy, things age, that sort of thing. So that's going to be the theme for mine. And then I needed some inspiration because even that can mean a lot of different things. So for me, a couple of years ago, my husband and I with some friends took a little trip. We like to take just road trips where we don't really have a plan, or maybe we've always wanted to go there kind of thing. And so it was just a little day trip we took over to Bodie, which is a ghost town in California. And it's a ghost town from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. It was a gold mining town. So I have always had that stuck in my head because I just love that whole color palette and the way that things have just aged over time. That town was abandoned and it was left like it is to just age how it was. So all they do is if something's starting to fall down, they prop it up, but otherwise it's just left untouched. So everything that was in a building that is still there is just, you can look through the windows and see everything. And I just love that. I took a ton of pictures and just for observation. So I have them on my computer, and I went ahead and I have hundreds. So this is like 80 of my favorites. And I just printed these out for inspiration for myself so that I could look at the pictures and just make observations about them, just to start feeling that old grungy vintage feel. So your theme might be a totally different theme, but this is kind of the process that I did. You could do the same thing if you're doing maybe a botanical theme. You look through garden books and that sort of thing. So for me, for this one, this is what I did, was take these pictures. So for my inspiration then, the next step that I wanted to do is start making observations. And like I was looking at, I know I'm looking through a window and I'm seeing through one room, through a door, through another window, that sort of thing. And then just all of the elements that you see. So I started making a list from everything that I was seeing. So I have, you know, rust, torn lace, peeling wallpaper, chipped paint, water stains, old doors, double exposure. For the double exposure, that was one of my favorite. I have a few pictures like this where I'm taking them through a window. So I'm getting the reflection of the building outside. I have all of the wood siding on that building, but then I'm looking at it through a window and seeing this clothing hanging on the wall, and wallpaper that is literally pieces of paper just tacked up to the wall. And you know, there's just peeling wallpaper and water stained wallpaper, and the furniture that's still left behind, and wood that's cupping, that sort of thing. So I just made a whole list of words that I saw in these pictures, and that's going to be my prompt list, so that as I'm trying to build and pull materials for this book, or have a feel for maybe papers that I make, I'm going to use these words to try to just stir my creativity. So that's kind of the approach that I took for my inspiration. And then my next step is going to be to collect materials. And I do have another step after that. The collecting materials one is going to take a little bit. And then after that's contents. And I will break that down in a next video probably, or maybe a couple of videos away, of what all I'm going to be putting into my journal. So right now though, I wanted to kind of start doing some videos before I get too far along and forget what I did. So this one's going to be kind of about collecting materials, then how I approach that. And then I'm going to do a little tutorial about starting to make that book cover. I end up sometimes mass making things, and so that takes a little bit more time, but you might want to do that also. And then this will give you time to collect your materials and make your book cover also. So to collect materials, the first thing that I did was I went through the paper packs that I already had. And if you're brand new to journaling and that sort of thing, you might not have a ton of paper packs. So for my theme, you know, Tim Holtz paper packs are great. I did find a few other ones that had some like textures of wood and that sort of thing that might work. I'm not going to go through all of them and show you, but I'll grab a couple just so you can, if I move this out of my way here. Just so you can see kind of what I was looking for. This is just a bag from where I buy my jewelry supplies in a town near me. This is the bag that they put them in, and it looks like old wallpaper to me. So I've saved this just to use for projects. So that was something I knew I had. And then I pulled some out of paper packs. So now I don't have this list, but let's see. This one is, I wasn't sure I was going to show all these. This one's from the Paper Studio, and it's called Country Road. So it has a lot of, you know, wood backgrounds, chippy paint, and florals and things. So this, you know, this paper pack could go for a lot of different themes, for a garden-y thing too. It's got some old brick and that sort of thing. So this one was a good one for me to look through. And I pulled out just a couple that I might like to use. I have no idea if I will use these or not, but I just kind of wanted to show you where my thinking was. And as I was doing these, pulling these, I have some tin ceiling pieces. I did a little experiment where I scanned that tin ceiling onto a book page just to kind of try to alter it from looking like a paper pack. These are from some Tim Holtz ones that I've had. Crowded Attic is this paper stash. So, you know, different things like this that'll work. I had this old world stack that has like some old wallpaper looking, and it even has kind of the texture of wallpaper. I thought I might use something out of that. And just some old text, that kind of thing. And again, this is more Tim Holtz. This one is Wallflower. And this one also comes in vellums that I have too, but it has that whole old world vintage kind of thing. And then this another Tim Holtz one. This one's Memoranda. And so it's again some ephemera type things. So I pulled those out first, thinking those might be something that I wanted to do. And then there's still that nagging from me, I guess, from the last series that I did, where I was forced to make my own papers. And during that time, I also decided to learn how to do Adobe Illustrator. And as I'm learning these programs, I'm finding that I could maybe make some papers in those kind of styles, but have them be from my own things, from my own original papers. And then that way I can share them with you too. So I'm gonna try to do that in this series, and I don't know how much of it I will get, but that's kind of my thought process. So one of the things that I did first, and I don't know if I should be embarrassed by this or excited, but I was very excited this day, so I'm gonna go with excited. So I decided just to look around my studio, and I've been collecting lots of old things forever. And so I thought, you know, I kind of have a lot of old things. So I took 100 pictures just one day of in my studio of old things. And I still haven't done everything. I collect old books, I collect old luggage, I have, you know, furniture pieces with chippy things. So I started just kind of going around because at this point, all I knew that I had was that I wanted to do a grungy journal, that I wanted to make it be a hardcover book that's from scratch, that I wanted it to be a certain color palette, that sort of thing. But other than that, that's really not a lot to go on. So I thought I want to see what I have around the house. So I took pictures, and then I've just collaged them kind of because I didn't want to sit here and go through 100 pictures with you. But just to give you an idea, if your theme, you might find that you're choosing a theme because that is something that means something to you, or that it's just something that you like. You might find, if that's the case, that you have a lot of that already around your house because it's something that you like. So look around, and once you've kind of in your mind started going towards, like for me, it's the ghost town theme, I realized I have a lot of grungy old stuff. So I went to take pictures for inspiration so that I can see finishes and fabrics, and maybe I can take a little piece of that and make that be a background. One of the things that I'm learning with Adobe Illustrator and those kind of things is you can change the opacity and layer things to get that double exposure look. So that's kind of where my brain is heading, is into trying to create some papers and different things that are a nod to the ghost town without being too literal. I don't know that I'll succeed in that, because I know that for me, I have a tendency to take things very literally. And so I'm going to make that be part of my challenge for this book, is to try to take all these old vintage things, but give it maybe a new spin that we haven't seen before, or at least that I haven't seen before. So this was a step for me, kind of a exercise, I guess you'd say, is taking pictures. So I've got old luggage, and I collect little drawers. I love little drawers. So I just did some drawers. And then chippy paint. I love chippy paint. And this is just all from pieces that I have in my room. I make my own displays for my jewelry. And I like to use vintage things for that. So I do have a lot of chippy paint in my past. And then I love rust. I have a little greenhouse off my kitchen, and it's all old barn wood inside. And so I took pictures of just old wood that can be great backgrounds. I've collaged them, like I said, but if you take just one piece and blow that up, it's just a nice background and a layer. And then rust, I just love rust. And these pieces here are actually a suitcase that I rusted out myself. And I know this is going to be a little tight in this frame here. Let's see if I can back out here. I have a process, and I've never tried this on paper, but I might, where you can actually create your own rust effect, and it's really rust. So I'm going to try maybe to do this. This is just something I used to display necklaces in, but I might try something like that too. So this is just kind of how I get my creativity going, is to just do these kind of exercises, taking pictures, seeing what I have. It gives me lots of different textures to look at. And then I had galvanized, that was also on my list. And galvanized, you know, it still gets rusty, and I just love how that looks. And these will make great background papers too, just on their own. So I'm probably gonna, at some point, these are not, I haven't color adjusted or anything to make these really pretty. So I will maybe do that and then offer these in my Etsy shop as just plain backgrounds that then you can layer and add your own thing. I'm gonna try to do the plain backgrounds early on in the series, because if you are going along and doing my same theme, then you might want to have access to those already. So I'm going to try to do that. All these things take a little bit of time, so this might be a series that takes a while to get finished, but hopefully each video will have some kind of new idea. I even took the book cover that I had made so far and scanned it in, because even that would be a pretty background. So like I said, I'm going to try to get a package together early on of just background sort of things. So the first thing that I want to do as far as actually building this is I went ahead, I had been collecting for a while food containers, just like cracker boxes and that kind of thing, to use to make my buttons. And so I had quite the big stash growing and decided I'm going to make some book covers ahead and just leave them plain, and then that way they're ready to go. At least they're built for when I want to do a journal. So I'm going to show you how I did this one, and we'll just do that part of it real quick, and then in another video I'll do the finish on it to keep that separate. So I ended up taking, for this one that I'm going to show you today, is this is just little Velveeta shells and cheese, and it was just a nice size because I like the size of the spine that I could use for the spine. This one I've made a little narrower. I think the other ones I have going are a little bit wider, and I kind of like that. Excuse me. Let me grab another thing here. Okay, so our end goal is to have it be that book finish. So the first thing that I wanted to do was cut my pieces. When I made this one, I made it 2 layers, 2 thicknesses, because I wanted it to be pretty sturdy. I've decided, because I'm using an actual book to figure out how to do this, the spine is not as thick normally as the covers. So I decided that I want to do on this next one 3 layers for the book covers, and then just 2 layers for the spine. So I have kind of a mixture of that. Some of them I've done one way and some of the other, but this is what it's going to end up like. So the first thing that I did, cut my box. This is going to be the outside part of my cover. And then I decided, depending on how you're going to end up finishing it, like this one isn't completely finished, you might end up seeing this color in here in the background. Most of mine I'm going to end up covering it up anyway, so it won't matter, but just in case, I'm going to go ahead and paint a little bit of white gesso right there, just on that little seam that might show, just to cover that up. And I think I'm going to get, before I mess up my paper anymore, it's kind of my non-glare thing. I'm going to get a little craft mat. Now, if you're a beginner and don't use, you know, do this on paper or something, or wax paper, these are little Teflon mats. I got this from Ranger, and they're wonderful because you can just wipe everything off of it and reuse it. It's a little thicker than trying to craft on maybe wax paper or something like that. So I just did just those 2 stripes that might show with some white gesso. And then, and I'm using, let's see, I like to show my products for beginners. I'm using Liquitex Professional acrylic mediums, just white gesso. Gesso comes in different colors and different qualities also. I had been using previously just the little cheap, the cheap one, which works okay. This a professional one's a little thicker, smoother, and so you actually use less of it. You might have to do 2 coats of something on the cheap one and then 1 coat of the expensive one, so it's probably kind of a wash. But anyway, that's gesso, something that you want to have in your kit if you're just starting out. So the next thing that I want to do, because I want this to be layers, and I've already now cut up and made books out of most of my pieces, so I don't have enough to even finish this one today. But what I did to get these other pieces, I decided that when I do my book, and I'm going to have thicker layers on these sides and in the middle, I need a gap where the crease is, because if you're going to be decoupaging or adding fabric or another paper or anything over that, you still want it to be able to open and close. And if you have just layered right on top of each other, it's not going to function the way that you want it to. So I like to, the pieces that I add, I like to cut those apart. So how I did that, I'm just going to kind of show you. I'll go ahead and show you on this one. I'm not going to actually cut it, but you see how there's this little score mark where the fold is? If you use the same food box, you can use different ones and just measure. But if you use the same exact one, it makes it really easy, because you can just cut this little part off in between, and then you've already made your little gap. So that's what I've done here. And I like to glue these together so that I end up with just plain cardboard on the outside. That way, if you happen to see through whatever I'm putting over this, you won't be seeing this graphic. So you can see that by cutting that away, that little thing out, I'm going to end up, by the time I add these pieces, I'm going to end up having that little gap in between. So that's your goal. Okay, so the other thing that I did after I've cut everything then is, you can see I've kind of scuffed everything up. These kind of boxes are shiny, and I'm just using my matte Mod Podge to glue them together. And I found that if you don't scuff them up and you're just using cheap white glue or whatever you're using, which is kind of what I recommend for this part, they might come apart if you haven't given it some tooth. So just like if you're painting furniture or wall or anything, you always kind of scuff it up with sandpaper. And you can find these little, this is like from Memories something, these little sanding blocks for crafting. But you can also just take a regular piece of sandpaper. This is 220. It doesn't really matter what the grit is. And then I just, you know, wrap it around something and then just give it a little scuff. And that way, you know, it's going to stick together. So once you have your pieces cut, scuff them up. And then I'm just using, like I said, I'm using a little Mod Podge. And I always put mine in a little throwaway container. Or this is like a lost lid from its partner. And I just use that. That way I can use it over and over and not contaminate my Mod Podge container. So I'm just going to add this glue on here really well. And then just line them up and put that on here. And then I use a brayer. This is just a little speedball. This one you can see I only use for gluing, so I never even clean it. I just only use it for gluing things. That way you get it adhered really well. And if you need to, if you have little gaps here, you've seen me use these a million times. These are little 1.5 inch, I think, bulldog clips. And someone had asked me once where I found these. I bought these back when I used to make recover lampshades. But I was able to just Google that on Amazon for her and find them. So just, you know, do a search for bulldog clips and just look for the 1.5 inch ones. But these are great to get all your edges tight. I'm a little froggy again today. You can always tell when we have a storm going through. Okay, so I'm not going to do all these pieces on camera, but, you know, basically you're going to go through and you're going to do this, 3, and then you're going to do 2 more on these outsides if you want it that thick, which is kind of what I think I'm going to do. So you would finish that and let it dry, okay? And then you would end up looking like, where is my blank one? Looking like this. And this one's all dry and ready to go. And this one is 3 layers and then just 2. So I actually spent a few days just cutting up all of my boxes and making them into book covers. So I need to take a break here so that I can go cough. But that's our book cover. I'm going to end this video for now. I'm going to do the next one with how we're going to finish this, at least for my theme of my new project. So have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.